Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. And by all, I mean the Washington football team. Welcome. It is Monday, Football Monday, here on the SB Nation NFL show, where we react to everything that happened every Sunday of the NFL season. A reminder before we get started that this show is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That's code SBNNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. My name is RJ Ochoa from SB Nation's Blog and the Boys, home of Dallas Cowboys content. That is the NFC East champion Dallas Cowboys here at SB Nation. And like I said, every Monday we get together, we talk about everything that happened throughout the NFL, and we do it live, like, you know, Rockefeller Center, whatever it's called this week, New Year's Eve. We are live and in full action to discuss everything that happened. You can watch us live on the SB Nation NFL Twitter page, the SB Nation NFL Facebook page, and we've got some YouTube developments happening as well. You can also obviously listen to our podcast. The SB Nation NFL show is available wherever you get your podcasts. That's Apple devices, Spotify. Subscribe, leave a rating, write a review. By the way, a shout out to our Spotify audience. Spotify now allows you to leave ratings. So if you can, leave a rating. Those things help us out. They make me happy. They make my co-host happy. The one, the only, the dashing, the debonair, the all-knowing, all-handsome, all-encompassing, from Arrowhead Pride, SB Nation's home, the AFC West champion, back-to-back Kansas City Chiefs. It is the one and only Pete Sweeney. Pete, it's so great to be with you. I think I got 6 backs in there. How are you feeling this particular morning? You look great, if I do say so.
Thank you.
Myself.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning and happy holidays.
That's right. Yeah.
We're also in the holiday season. We just had Christmas. This is the sandwich week where there's a lot of people off. So you got to think people are feeling good right now. We know people are feeling good in Kansas City and
Feeling
Dallas,
good.
RJ. Wow.
Like I should.
Are the Chiefs and Cowboys the two favorites for the? I know the Chiefs are the favorites for the Super Bowl. Where do the Cowboys stand in the NFC odds right now? Is it high?
The Green Bay Packers in all their glory, unfortunately, are in the mix, and I know everybody wants to see that Super Bowl one, the rematch. Well, nobody cares. Nobody.
That would be preferable, for me, or a rematch of last year. That's maybe the two that I'd like to see.
We will not be discussing the Green Bay Packers on this particular episode of Monday Football Monday because our task, Pete Sweeney, is to discuss everything that happened on Sunday. The Green Bay Packers beat the Cleveland Browns on Saturday, the fraudulent Cleveland Browns, that is. The Indianapolis Colts beat the super fraudulent Arizona Cardinals on Saturday night. But the Kansas City Chiefs won the AFC West. The Dallas Cowboys won the NFC East. In fact, Pete, half of the NFL's divisions are locked up, sewn up. Good thing they added a whole extra week because there's a lot of things up for grabs.
Well, what's wild here is there are 6 spots that are not determined in the AFC. Only the Chiefs have clinched a playoff berth, and you have about 13 teams that could realistically make the postseason. So the postseason has started, right? We want to say that it's starting in a couple of weeks.
I can't wait to hear a coach this week. Yeah, as far as we're looking at it, the playoffs have already started.
Yeah, it has felt like that. I think in certain games there was. I thought, I know we're getting into some games here, but I thought there was a playoff feel to a couple games. Even yesterday, like Rams and Vikings felt a little bit playoff like. I thought that Joe Burrow's statement game felt a little bit like a playoff game between two division teams who really
you know what, Pete, let's quit locking eyes across the dance floor. Let's get out here. The Cupid shuffle's on. We gotta, to the left. Let's talk.
Everybody
about
clap your hands.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, here we go.
The Cincinnati Bengals announced themselves as would-be champions of the AFC North. Not locked up yet, but 41-21. The Bengals took it personally. I don't know what it is, Pete Sweeney, but they have now swept both the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers on the season. Joseph Burrow, 37 of 46, 525 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air, 2 carries, 11 yards. If you care about that extra fantasy point, it is playoff time after all. A passer rating of 143.2, Pete Sweeney, 2 touchdowns to T. Higgins, 6 yards shy of 200. The Baltimore Ravens fielding a rather incomplete roster, but a very impressive game for the Bengals nonetheless.
Yeah, the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, this was the drama heading into this game, said that Joe Burrow shouldn't be
shout out Wink
for his Hall of Fame jacket, which I think he has a point, and I think a lot of us would probably agree with. I love
What's
Wink.
funny is it actually was a Bengal who prematurely put a Hall of Fame jacket on himself, and Chad Ochocinco way back when. So,
Yeah.
nice little subtle, double entendre there.
Almost a wink to the history of this. You know what I'm saying?
Another double entendre.
There we go. Yeah, no, I like Wink. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. To me, it's always a bonus when the Chiefs are able to get past the Ravens because they usually have a pretty good plan and well thought out. And this just was silly to me because the Ravens were already shorthanded. And this is something that I really respect. I hate to keep bringing up the Chiefs always, but Andy Reid just
really
doesn't give extra bulletin board material. And like, to me, you're already shorthanded in this game. Joe Burrow is clearly going to be a future, I don't think this year, but like a future MVP candidate on a regular basis. Why give him the added motivation? And they asked Burrow, who threw 4 checks notes, 525 yards after the game, if he had heard it. And he said, it was a disrespectful comment. Didn't go too far into it. And then another reporter, someone from Cincinnati, very clearly who loves them, a little of that chili on the spaghetti, asked Burrow, were you thinking about it as you were throwing for 525 yards? And Joe, who is wearing a Santa hat on this Zoom, by the way.
And a Krusty Krab sweater. Don't forget that detail, please.
And a Krusty Krab sweater. Let's not forget that detail, please. He says maybe, which means, of course, he was thinking about it. And then I look on the NFL Twitter. By the way, a shout out to the NFL social teams for doing this. They go to the game of the day now and make this punny thing where for their anyway. So it's Joey Franchise, King of the Jingle. And it's just a picture of Joe in his Santa hat and Krusty Krab. And to me, as you look at all these games across the NFL from Sunday, the day to me belonged to Joey Burrow. And I think he sort of announced himself. I mean, we talk about these young quarterbacks all the time. Dak Prescott, right? Josh Allen, another one of your boys, my guy, Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow doesn't really get any of that love. Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. To me, this was Joe Burrow announcing to the NFL universe, hey, do you guys forget about me? And the Bengals can do some damage in the playoffs. They got the Chiefs actually next week.
So, something that Stats has been saying a lot on both the Oddcast and the Look Ahead is how this season's kind of been house money for the Bengals. You mentioned Josh Allen, the Bills, you have a big expectation this season. You got to do something serious. Bengals never had that, right? And in fact, a lot of us thought Zach Taylor might be on his way out. Who knows, whatever, blah, blah. Everybody obviously wanted to see Joe Burrow take a step. I mean, not that he hadn't done it this season, but this was a huge step. And I get it that this Ravens team was very weak. And then we said that. I mean, the Ravens, what they've done this season is really impressive, all things considered, but they've just reached a point where it's too much. And Joe Burrow obviously took advantage of that. And I mean, I don't know how you don't feel like he's one of the top, dudes. He's I mean, call it an MVP candidate, call it whatever. He's in the mix. I mean, as far as the way I like to look at things, he's going to be in the Sunday Night Football intro with Carrie Underwood. He's going to be on the NFL Red Zone posters. He's one of the stars of the NFL. He's become that. And I mean, how long has it been since the Bengals had a star? I mean, like a bona fide superstar. You mentioned that the NFL Twitter account does change their header, every single week. Like when have the Bengals? Who was the last Bengal that they would? Because even Andy Dalton and AJ Green, through all those highs, their last division title now 6 years ago, never had the superstar kind of aura. Joe certainly has that. I mean, he's obviously had that for a long time, dating back to college. So, hey, kudos to you, Joe Burrow.
He's got young stars around him too. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have broken 1,000 receiving yards, and that makes the Bengals the first team in NFL history to have multiple players with 1,000 receiving yards before turning 23. So you talk about sustainability and reaching your prime. All of these guys are about, technically speaking, 5 years before their prime. So this isn't just the Bengals and what is going to be a one-hit wonder. This, I think, is the Bengals reversing the course of history of them being a laughingstock into what is going to be a regular AFC contender.
So before we leave this game, I mean, the Ravens, I thought, again, put up a fight. It doesn't look that way as far as the scoreboard's concerned, but I think all things considered, they had to play Josh Johnson at quarterback, Tyler Huntley on the COVID list, just kind of, the rhythms of what this season has been, certainly over the last month. Some of this garbage time, there's some of that, some of that context, but, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mark Andrews remains a fantasy darling at the very least. I mean, 8 catches, $125 in a score.
It's a beast.
I mean, the Ravens, This was impressive. I think to hang in there as long as they did, or how they did at least, was something that I don't think anybody expected. I mentioned fantasy. This was the kind of situation where you said, okay, well, even Tyler Huntley's out. I'm going to pick up the Bengals defense, and I'm going to stream this defense, and I'm going to have a lot of success. And the Ravens, they do not. If any team does not go out like with a whimper, it is the Ravens. They, it's a football cliche, but they fight to the very bitter end. And I think John Harbaugh deserves a lot of credit for that.
They got the Rams and the Steelers. They're not going to win both of those games, and
they are the 7 seed as of this moment, just for full context. But yeah,
I think they end up finishing the season 8-9 or 9-8, and they're going to be right at the outside looking in. And for all the injuries that they sustained this year, that it actually is incredible when you really look at and dig into who they had injured, and then you have the games where you don't have Lamar Jackson. You had this unfortunate circumstance where you do have to play Mr. 14 team Josh Johnson, and that doesn't really put you in a good light either. And so kudos to the Ravens for making it close. But, if you look at this AFC playoff picture, there's only 7 teams. One of these bigger name teams was going to be on the outside looking in. And I think we're establishing it's probably going to be Baltimore.
T's and P's, Baltimore Ravens, T's and P's. You mentioned him, Pete Sweeney. I did not believe I had jumped off the bandwagon, but the Buffalo Bills have life. The Buffalo Bills got the like any medical drama, on network television, got the electric paddles. It's clear, and just put life back into their season. That's right.
Yeah, Bears pumped up. We sure that his name is not Bill? Is that Bill the dog?
There was a Bill who had a comment here. Bear, it's okay. 33-21.
Garbage day. It's coming in.
Your thoughts on the Bills?
It is a raucous there in Texas. My God. Calm down, Bill. Okay. Yeah, no, I think they needed this type of game for confidence reasons. This would have been the classic end of the season before the season's over type of game if Buffalo loses. And I think it was important not only to win, but for Josh Allen to look as good as he did, because I think we were starting to feel like, and who knows, confidence and whatnot with Allen, is he capable of winning a game like this? And I thought the Buffalo Bills had a good game plan. They managed the run and put it essentially by scoring points on the back of Mac Jones, who looked like a rookie, right? And so, you have this game, and this is a game the Buffalo Bills should win. They should have won the other one, the wind disaster 3-pass game. And so they take care of business here. And I always say this, if you can just simply get in the dance, and if you're playing well at the end of December, then suddenly you are a threat. And I look at this, right, because I cover the Kansas City Chiefs, and you look at the rest of the AFC playoff picture, and you wonder, okay, which of these teams to you feels like a real threat that could possibly win? To me, looking at the AFC right now, because of the quarterbacks and everything that go into it, and Buffalo getting some of that confidence early in the season, Cincinnati is there. Indianapolis might be there. Again, teams that possibly could knock off the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. But Buffalo, probably to me, still, even with them in the 4th seed, is the greatest threat to everything the Chiefs want to accomplish this year. And I think they have to have a feeling like, look, we had our ups and downs. We had that embarrassing loss 9-6 in Jacksonville, but we won this big game that was, as we started with the top of the show, essentially a playoff game. They needed to win this game, and they did in a convincing fashion. And to me, right when he needed it, it was the re-arrival of Josh Allen.
So the mail truck is passing by, which has upset my dog. So, ticking time bomb situation sort of here. But I do want to say, to your point, this was a play. Like, I made the trope earlier, like playoffs starting out. This was a playoff. You had to win this game. You had to. And I think that this proves, when you look back on the Monday night loss to New England, that in chaos, Bill Belichick will thrive. Right? Like when the game is upside down, when the wind, you know what I mean? When there is that extenuating circumstance, Bill Belichick will thrive. But I think a lot of people felt, and Bills fans obviously did, that on a neutral field, not that this was that, but in normal standard circumstances, Buffalo would find a way. They did. This was, I'm not saying Josh Allen is MVP, but he had an MVP game. Like there were critical moments down the stretch where Buffalo just absolutely had to have a first down, had to have something. And Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, the superstars on this team rose to the occasion. That that is such a nice thing when you are up against a wall and the guys you pay big money to, the guys who are the leaders of your team, they show up and they deliver like that. That doesn't happen all the time. I think Sean McDermott deserves way more credit than we're even maybe giving him.
Diggs was a little bit more curbed, I think, this year than last year. And I also thought in this game, as you watched it, you said to yourself, if Allen and Diggs get this going again, man, they can beat anybody, really. That's kind of how I feel about it. I didn't like how they were reacting after the Patriots game with McDermott saying it wasn't a Belichick win. It was everything that was a Belichick win, as you were alluding to. And I didn't like the fact that they took offense to reporters asking questions if they were embarrassed on their field. You know what you do in that scenario? You go back and you play like you did against the Patriots in this game. And then you don't have to say things like that at the podium. And so the Bills have everything in front of them. They got an easy rest of the way. And so they're going to be a threat in the AFC playoffs, and we'll see how far they can go.
What do you make of New England's playoff chances? They're the 6th seed at the moment. I mean,
who are the last 2 games for them?
Well, I can't believe you don't know this off the top of your head, Pete, as I stall momentarily to pull up the schedule and also balance the mail truck on its way here. The Patriots' final 2 games of the season are the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in Foxborough and then Miami.
That's right, Barrett. W for both. So they will be in the playoffs as a wild card behind the Bills because they blew this game yesterday. Right? Do you agree with that? Okay. RJ is muted because I bet his dog's going bananas.
The mail truck has passed. I don't know what was delivered, but it better be good is all I have to say. Congratulations.
Maybe it was a grapefruit spoon. Is that what you ordered?
Oh, actually, real quick sidebar. Right before we started recording, Pete, Rachel, and I, our fantastic producer, we were talking, and they did not know that there is a special spoon to eat grapefruits. Are you embarrassed by this, Pete?
No, I don't get embarrassed by anything. I have it pulled up right now. I don't dabble in a ton of grapefruits, so I don't think I'll ever be purchasing something like this, but it is a weird thing to look at. It looks like a sharp spoon. You can imagine that.
Again,
it's got teeth at the end of it.
It has teeth to like I told. I'm not a grapefruit like Stan, but it's to scoop the meat of the fruit off the skin. If you are aware or unaware of grapefruit spoons, let us know on Twitter. Pete is at PG Sweeney. Rachel is at Rachel Monique. I am at RJ Ochoa.
Grapefruit is a very odd tasting fruit. I don't know who just likes to walk around with this high-wear 4-piece grapefruit spoon.
I agree.
Chomping down on some GF.
I think it's weird that people like grapefruit juice. Like, to me, like, it's such a bitter taste. Like, why would you?
Yeah, it's got like a sassy taste. It's like I don't want to drink a sassy drink like this. I can
see eating it. Like, maybe you like the experience of it. Like, maybe it's relaxing to you or something. Like some sort of like bonsai tree. But yeah, not
maybe
for me.
Some incense.
I don't know. But let's go to LA. The Los Angeles Rams have overtaken the fraudulent Arizona Cardinals in the NFC West thanks to a 30-23 victory against Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. Matthew Stafford is headed to the playoffs with the Rams. 21 for 37, 197 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, some of them rather ugly. This was kind of a not so glamorous day for Matthew Stafford. Kirk Cousins on the other side, 27 of 38, 350 yards, a touchdown and a score. Justin Jefferson did pass Odell Beckham Jr., who was obviously on the other side of this game for the most receiving yards by a player in their first 2 seasons in the NFL. But the Rams got it done, Pete, and sometimes you just got to get it done. You got to find a way. Like I said, they have not only passed the Cardinals for first place in the AFC West, the NFC West, but they have also, by virtue of the tiebreaker among the 3 teams tied for second in the NFC, passed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Rams currently sit as the 3 seed in the NFC.
These are hard games to win in the NFL, where you do have a franchise quarterback, which we'd all agree that Matt Stafford is, but this was a rough outing. And to win despite your quarterback playing extremely poorly is impressive. And I think it just speaks to the threat that the Rams are in the NFC. And this was a defensive game. Aaron Donald and the secondary and doing what they could to manage, to an extent, Justin Jefferson. He still had 116 yards, but it wasn't enough damage again to win this football game. We do have to say, when it comes to Jefferson, he set the record for the most receiving yards in the first 2 years of a young
I literally said that, Pete. Those
career.
are literally the words that came out of my mouth like 30 seconds ago.
But I like the fact that, well, this is my point. I like the fact that Odell Beckham Jr. was on the field and he got to.
I literally said that too, Pete.
And
Jeez.
they have this
Maybe
friendship.
I'm still on mute, man.
They have this friendship about him.
Do we have a friendship? Goodness.
Anthony Barr had 2 interceptions, which is tough to accomplish as a linebacker, and they came at tough times because it gave the Vikings the short field. And so for the Vikings to have the opportunities that they did and to not be able to come out with a win, I think just goes to show where they're at. And again, I said all year we've talked about the Vikings, and I said they are in NFL purgatory, and that is where they're going to finish, just out of the playoffs and without a good draft pick, and then stuck with Kirk Cousins, your boy. And the Rams are on their way up, and Cam Akers is on the way back, which is incredible, and that's going to be an incredible boost. And the NFC playoffs should be really, really intriguing.
It's nice to see the Rams back, but I don't know that Cam Akers is like necessary. I'm not like about to hang my hat on Sony Michel, but 27 carries, $131, had the score in this game. Darrell Henderson, sorry for anyone who did play him in fantasy, 1 carry for 17 yards. So not ideal there.
I have a quick fantasy point on Henderson. McVay just doesn't want to play Henderson. When Malcolm Brown was on the team, Malcolm Brown would get key carries over Henderson. Any excuse that you give Mr. McVay not to play him,
McVay,
he's going to go in the other direction, and that's why you're seeing Sony Michel. And as soon as Cam Akers gets back, it's going to be Akers and it's going to be Michel. And poor Darrell Henderson is going to be on the bench. Just send him to another team so someone else can enjoy Henderson.
Do you really believe in the Rams? Like, no. Why not?
Well, I don't know. I just, with Stafford playing like this, it's hard to believe that they're going to be able to win in the playoffs, right? I mean, and Stafford's been waiting for this opportunity for his entire life, this type of team entering the postseason, and it just needs to play better. If he could show me a little bit more in what are the final 2 weeks, and I think the Rams suddenly become way more interesting because of that defense and just how complete a team they are. But you got to see at some point the quarterback go out and play well and propel his team to a big victory. And this was anything but that.
The Rams moved to 11-4. Like I said, the 3 seed in the NFC playoff picture. The Vikings not dead in the water yet, Pete. They are 7-8. They are the 9 seed. 8-win teams in the NFC currently holding on to wildcard spots. The San Francisco 49ers, who lost on Thursday night to Tennessee, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who we'll get to in just a bit. The New Orleans Saints are 7-7 and play tonight on Monday Night Football. Definitely an uphill battle for the Vikings, but like I said, not mathematically eliminated quite yet. Where do you want to go next, Pete? You pick. You're up. Dealer's choice. Go for it.
Let's go to Texans.
Oh my gosh. Well, I throw out the F word a lot.
Whoa. No, don't do that.
I understand that
you might need the explicit label. Yeah.
I have called a lot of people frauds. And here's the thing, Pete. I'm about to surprise you here. I'm not going to call the Los Angeles Chargers frauds.
No.
I'm bearing the lead here. Lost to the Texans. The Texans, 41-29.
The Houston Texans.
That's right, not the Dallas Texans.
149 yards in this game.
And 2 touchdowns. Okay, so the
Rex Burkhead.
The frauds,
Rex Burkhead.
The true frauds.
Yeah,
and this somewhat includes us, but we're on the outer surface of this. Are the people who raced to crown the Chargers? Are the people who raced to crown Justin Herbert? He's on Patrick Mahomes' level. He's not. The people who raced to crown Brandon Staley, who I like and have no issues with the decisions he made against the Chiefs a couple of weeks ago, despite my friend Pete and his lack of appreciation for the finer things in life like data and intelligence. But it is what it is.
Analytics.
The frauds are the people
frauduletics sometimes to me.
Thought that this was different. And you know what? I am going to challenge the Oddcast, Pete Sweeney. All right, and I'm going to challenge specifically.
Just let me know what that is.
One of my other, it's I'll send you a Slack later. I'm going to challenge one of my other co-hosts, Mr. Brandon Lee Gatton, because when the Minnesota Vikings, who we just spoke about, Pete, lost to the Detroit Lions, it was what a bunch of losers. How could you do this? How could you possibly? Kirk is a loser. Kirk lost. Blah blah blah. Whatever. Blah blah. This is unacceptable. This is disgraceful. I don't even want the Chargers in the playoffs anymore. I don't. I'm sorry. No, you cannot lose this game. You cannot lose this game and have me take you seriously. I'm out on the Chargers. I'm out. I'm all the way out. Maybe next year we'll talk. We'll revisit it. We'll sit down. We'll break bread. Who knows? But I am out on the Chargers, and anyone who believed in them owes the general footballness of the world an apology, because there was nothing. There was nothing other. People love to do this, Pete, and you probably experienced this on Twitter. Give me like a roster bubble Chiefs player. Just give me one. Give me a guy who's like at the tail end of the roster, like a young player.
How about Byron Pringle?
Okay. Oh, okay. I would bet my bottom dollar, Pete, that in the preseason you've gotten tweets like, man, I really think Byron Pringle is going to come out. This is Byron Pringle showing out. Like there's a difference between what you want to happen and what you actually think is going to happen. And a lot of people love to like confuse the two and just say, I think insert something they want here is going to happen. And that's what everybody did with the Chargers. It would have been a cool story. It was a cool story for a little while. They are frauds and their believers are frauds.
Well, okay. I think I agree with parts of what you're saying. I think
100 parts. That's right. 100%.
I think people were a little too fast to jump on the Charger bandwagon because
we crowned them. It's fine if you want to make them the Duke of or Duchess of NFL royalty, but we went straight to King and Queen.
They're because there's Kansas City Chiefs fatigue. I think you see that.
You know what? I agree with that. I hate that point generally, but I agree with that in this case. Sorry, I'm fired up. Keep going.
Now, I don't want to lean all the way into the F word like you, because in this game, they were without Eckler, Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton, and Corey Linsley.
The Texans were without 16 players.
No, I understand.
And they are awful when they have those players. So, no.
I think so Keenan Allen is the top receiver on this team, but I think Mike Williams has maybe been one of the more underrated players in the AFC and the NFL. I'm making excuses for them. I mean, you saw teams throughout the league find ways to win games as they're missing COVID players. But to me, every team has a stinker. I don't know if you remember this game, but the Cowboys played the Broncos not too long ago, and that didn't really
are not the Texans.
That didn't really go so well. No, the Kansas City Chiefs, they had a game against the Titans where they lost 27-3 and looked awful.
I'm sorry. No way. I'm not. You can't do it. You can't.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, RJ, and here's the reality of it. It's one game, and now the Chargers have 2 division games left.
Now they no longer control their own destiny, Pete. Like now they are on the outside looking in.
If we're going to say, okay, the Baltimore Ravens are falling out, which they in all likelihood will, it's going to be the Chargers or the Raiders, because we're not going to say the Pittsburgh Steelers, after what they showed yesterday, are going to be capable. And they have this Week 18 game against each other. Raiders and Chargers, that could be for the seed 7 in the AFC.
This is a worse loss than the Vikings losing to the Lions. I'm sorry. This is worse than that, because this is supposed to be a better team. Like the pomp and circumstance surrounding the Chargers, again, was equivalent to the Chiefs, was equivalent to the Bucks, was equivalent to the Rams at its height, was equivalent to the Cowboys. And what was the peak of this Chargers dumb?
But when you run your offense through Williams and Eckler, I'm with you. You still have to beat the Texans, but I just think with the pieces
this game.
They were missing.
Rex Burkhead ran all over them. 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. Davis Mills was 21 of 27 for 254 yards. And
the run defense has left some room to be desired there in LA.
I mean, what a travesty. You got the sickest uniforms in the world.
So are you ready to put a fork in them? They're not making the postseason.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they are frauds.
So you're favoring one F word over the other. You're not ready for the fork.
I don't do forks. All right. I only do grapefruit spoons.
All right? I just thought the forks was like a Dallas thing. Like I thought, people in the Dallas community love to just stick forks in teams that aren't done.
No. You're thinking of brands, like branding irons. You know what I'm
Maybe
saying?
Irvin, Michael Irvin sticking a fork in the Chiefs.
I don't do forks. I do frauds. You're officially labeled as a fraud.
You do grapefruit spoons is what you do.
You're right, exactly. And they are frauds. They are not contenders. I'm not even saying they won't get in the playoffs. They won't win a playoff game. But this is not sustainable. They are not worthy of the love that they get. I mean, look, love them, like treat them kindly. But you know what I'm saying? Like they are not football worthy. They are frauds. They will not.
You're just saying they're just not AFC contenders. They're a spicy team. They're still kind of spicy.
They're not even spicy. They're like mild. That's what I'm saying. We do I forgot our burrito bet, by the way. That's on me. But we do our Chipotle bets every single week. You know how they got the corn salsa, the mild, the legit salsa? They're the corn salsa. Like it's barely salsa. It only like literally qualifies from a definition standpoint as salsa.
Might be the worst salsa at Chipotle.
Right, exactly.
It might be the worst one.
They're the corn salsa, and they don't deserve any more of our time. Way to go, Texans, for exposing the frauds that are the believers in the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's go. Where do you want to go next, Pete? That was a good discussion. You set it up. Go 2 for 2. Where do you want to go next? Come on, Pete Sweeney. You can do it.
All right, let me get the list of games over here quick.
List of games. Not like you needed this when we started the show or anything. No big deal.
Let's keep it in the AFC West and go to the Raiders and Broncos.
The Raiders and the Broncos. It was actually this victory by the Las Vegas Raiders that secured the NFC East for the Dallas Cowboys, who we will get to. Don't worry, people. 17-13, the final
That doesn't make any
score.
sense to me, by the way.
It was strength of victory because the Cowboys and Eagles obviously played.
You know what? I don't know if that should... That's a little underwhelming, right? When you have this great Cowboys year.
That is the Drew Lock of tiebreakers.
Raiders
was extremely. Actually, this game was just sad. I don't think we need to spend too much time with it. Like this was just sad. Like it made me sad that there are fan bases who root for these teams every week. That's how I felt about this. Like, you know what I hated? Derek Carr threw an awful pick six at the end of the first half, and I don't.
You're saying
at
that point he didn't deserve to win, right?
That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying, it actually wasn't a pick six. It went down to the 1 yard line, but it was almost a pick six. But my point is, it's like Derek Carr chases him down, makes the tackle, and then gets up and is like, doing some hand gestures like, yep, he was there. It's like, hey, Derek Carr, you acknowledging the horrible thing you did seconds after you did it in no way like makes up for it. Like it's still an awful thing. Just because you're now aware that it was an awful thing doesn't exonerate you from it. I go back and forth, dude. Like I feel bad for Derek Carr that he's trapped by this franchise, but I mean he is
trapped by the franchise,
dude. He is. I mean he's better than them, but like that's not saying much. He is the perfect quarterback for the Washington football team next year. That's really how I feel about Derek Carr.
Yeah, I tend to think the Raiders are going to really, really start fresh, and that includes at the quarterback position. With this win though, somehow they are still in the mix. I just talked about the Chargers. They're both 8-7 at this point, and they got a game against each other. So unless they're going to pull a Pittsburgh Steelers and tie, someone is going to get to 9 wins here. And if they can win the other game, get to 10 and probably be in the postseason. So Vegas, for all the ups and downs and off the field and Derek Carr looking like Derek Carr, to me, they have everything right in front of them right here if they can just take care of business.
The Denver Broncos, meanwhile, on the other end of that, now fall to 7-8. I mean, they had a clear and obvious ceiling on their team, even with Teddy Bridgewater.
There's a sigh of relief in a sense, I think, when you're a team like Denver in their scenario, because they want to get rid of Vic Fangio. They want to move on.
Yeah,
it's tough to do that when they make it the postseason. You know what I mean?
It is like a freeing, like a liberating feeling. You know what I mean?
It's not great. It's not great when the day of, because you're still hopeful. I want to play off football in Broncos country. But then Monday happens, you get to the afternoon and you're like, okay, at least we can get a new head coach in, right? And that'll be some new energy.
No, I think it's
and when you get a new quarterback and whatnot, who knows what can happen for you.
To me, and I never personally experienced this, if my parents are listening, but it's like when you fail a class in college, but you're going to fail that class, and then you go and you do the final and it's terrible, and the final grades get posted, and you're like, okay, I failed. You know what I mean? Right. But like, this isn't a surprise, and you're like, there's almost this, like, to your point, like sigh of relief, and you're like, okay, you know what? I can retake the course, and I'll just take it more seriously. I'll just take it more seriously.
Next time, I won't go out on a Tuesday evening before the Wednesday exam.
I don't know how the parties work at Syracuse, but there's no Tuesday parties in College Station. That's all I'll say.
That's not true. That is 100% not true. I do know someone named Johnny Manziel that.
Well, I mean,
we all differ.
Yeah, every school has their king, and anyway,
every school has their king.
Oh, what a great song! Seriously, what a great time.
Thanks.
But I think, and I said this on the look ahead last week, the Broncos have accomplished the most important thing relative to them this season. They have proven that they are worthy of a franchise quarterback choosing them. Right? They have proven to Aaron Rodgers.
They got the rest of the cast. They got receivers.
That's what
defense.
I'm saying.
They got the running back in there.
That's all this was about. This was about luring Aaron Rodgers. They went. You know who they were? They were the pick
for next year's Bachelor. Right? They had a good enough season, and now they get to be the Bachelor next year. Like came close, right? But look, they didn't get the final rose in what were 7 suitors left. And wow, people kind of started to really like Denver. They got those orange jerseys. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, Russ Wilson wouldn't look too bad in that jersey. Let's just hope the Bachelor doesn't choose Deshaun Watson.
As Meredith Grey once said in another ABC production, given that The Bachelor is on that network, pick me, choose me. Right. That is what the Denver Broncos have been saying to Aaron Rodgers. Let's go, Pete, to what was it's actually 2 surprisingly interesting games we'll get to here. The New York Jets outlasting the Jacksonville Jaguars. No Robert Saleh in this game. 26-21. Trevor Lawrence, 26 of 39, 280 yards, no scores. Meanwhile, Zach Wilson, 14 of 22, 102 yards through the air and a touchdown, but nobody cares. It was the 52-yard scamper that he had. 4 carries for 91 yards ultimately, so he was also busy outside of the big run. Michael Carter, 16 carries, $118. This was a nice win for the Jets. This was like a Christmas win, but this did not have the juice of number 1 pick versus number 2 pick. I didn't feel that way, at
least. I don't care about this game. I don't know. This is you're talking about a 5 wins.
It went down to the end, though. That's what I meant. Like the final possession had meaning. I did not think that would be the case.
There was some comments, and this is a silver lining for Jacksonville fans. There were some comments that they finally feel like, okay, they're feeling like a football team again, and like they can maybe win some kind of game in the future at some point. The Jets, I mean, I don't know. Do you feel good about Zach Wilson right now? Do you feel good about the future? Do you believe that there's any sliver of hope that they're going to be a playoff team next year or in the year after? No, I don't.
I don't know if it's the number 2 thing, but he actually reminds me of like the worst qualities of Johnny Manziel. Like that's what I think of when I watch Zach Wilson. I just like these are like 2 I was depressed watching the Raiders Broncos game because I was like, man, this sucks. I feel for this was like a different level of suck. Like these are just 2 insignificant teams. Like if the NFL today was like, you know what, we're getting rid of the Jaguars and Jets, like I would be bothered if the NFL got rid of the Raiders and Broncos. You know what I mean? I'd be like, they're historic. Like I would be so upset, but I really would not care or lose a wink of sleep. Shout out to, of course, Joe Burrow's rival. If this happened,
we do have to say, like, so Trevor Lawrence in this game was 26 of 39 for 280, and what has gotten lost, I think, and this is probably the biggest travesty of the NFL this year, was, man, this was the surest prospect since Andrew Luck. And I know that you have to see them play, and what happens, and maybe you can't live up to those expectations, but it just had to look better than this. And Jaguars ownership just did him such a disservice and just said, this year of your life, we're just going to burn it, right? Like it's gone. And you might have to kind of reestablish and retool yourself this offseason. This is the most important coaching hire maybe this offseason for a player's life, in a sense, because Lawrence does not look like he was built. He doesn't even look close to it. He looks like, I would say, and I'm not even being exaggerating here, he looks like the worst quarterback in the class, right? I mean, you even had Zach Wilson, who has not looked great, and Wilson clearly outperformed him in this game.
Can you think of, like, and again, Pete and I are not trying to, like, say the jury's back on Trevor Lawrence. He's done. He's cooked, whatever.
But it's not his fault.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is, like, you can think of a big play from every quarterback, right, Bear? Like you can think of even like quarterbacks that have been offered. You could think of a big play that Baker Mayfield made this year, or even like a notable play, like even not a big play, like even the poor tackle attempt against Houston early on this season where you heard it. Like you could think of something significant that Baker Mayfield did. Can you think of anything? Like, is there any Trevor Lawrence memory that comes to mind?
Trevor Lawrence highlights from 2021, 404 not found. That's just clearly what it is.
Went 404. Shout out to internet.
Maybe he can take a red shirt and start his rookie year again next year.
Okay. Next, not really surprisingly interesting game, but we have to talk about it, so I'll get to it and then get through it. The Chicago Bears. That's right, little buddy sitting on the couch in the office. Outlasted the.
Still need a bear cam. Got to get that figured out.
You got to be like somewhat good to be a fraud. That's what I'm saying. Like being a fraud is like you teased us.
So Seattle doesn't deserve it. Is that what you're going with this?
Seattle never merited consideration for being a fraud in my book because they were just that bad. They lost, Pete, to the Chicago Bears, who basically leaked in the morning, we want to lose so that we can fire Matt Nagy and get a jump start on interviewing head coaching candidates because the NFL has the new rule. They lost to a Chicago Bears team that started Nick Foles at quarterback. They lost to this team at home. Russell Wilson, that's the thing, dude. Like, look, I will fully admit that Aaron Rodgers owns my life. He owns my team, and it sucks. And I am terrified of him, and he is still awesome. And wherever he goes, he's going to be awesome again, and it will be annoying.
You may have to beat him.
That's true. I mean, we'll get there. On the other end of that spectrum, though, I have loved Russell Wilson forever. He's awesome. He has been my favorite non-Cowboys quarterback in the NFL for a long time. I do not think that it's just this automatic, like, oh my gosh, the insert whoever here got Russell Wilson in the offseason. They're back. This team's back. They'll call it the Giants or the Broncos or the Raiders, the Saints.
The Giants
whatever.
are doubling down on.
Oh, dude.
Jones. That's another story.
But that, like, again, not worthy of frauds. But I don't think Russell's that guy anymore. I mean, and I think there's a lot of evidence to support that. Dude, the Seahawks lost this game. What a bunch of losers. 25-24. They both are 5-10. Seattle, not that this is a surprise, officially mathematically eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah, this is the end for Russ Wilson in Seattle.
This is the end. Great underrated movie, by the way.
Right. No Time to Die. So I think it is what we saw Seattle heading toward anyway, and I think it's becoming easier for Seahawks fans to be okay with the start over, because I just think for a little bit there they were flirting with relevance, right? And you're like, okay, one last dance, one more time. And now I think Russ Wilson, like sometimes you'll see with a lot of head coaches and quarterbacks in other situations. I think of, we talked about Stafford and just like needing a fresh start in a new place, and him wanting that, and the organization supporting that, and getting him to somewhere where he wanted to be. And I think Russ Wilson isn't needed at. He is not the same quarterback that we saw heading to Super Bowls, winning Super Bowls, or the Super Bowl, I should say. And yeah, I think this is the end, and we'll see if Pete Carroll is still there too. But I just think the Seattle Seahawks are going to look very, very different next year. And same thing with Chicago. It just delays what they want to do this offseason in starting over themselves just another week.
I'm going to say this, and I feel like I'm talking here to a specific set of teams. I'll say it's probably the Saints, the Lions, the Panthers, maybe, the Texans, and I don't know, maybe even the Seahawks, and maybe the Raiders or Broncos. Do not let this Nick Foles performance convince you that he is worth a shot in 2022, because that's what's going to happen. Some team's going to say, well, Nick Foles went to Seattle in the snow and beat the Seahawks. Do not let that happen to your team.
Jacksonville tried and they made a mistake, and I don't know if a team will do it.
We'll see. Speaking of Detroit, let's head there next.
Twice.
Coming off of their shocking win over the Arizona Cardinals, they faced another bird team whose primary colors are red, black, and white. But this time it was not a win that they found, Pete Sweeney. 20-16, the final score. The Falcons have a teeny little heartbeat. Matt Ryan, 18 of 24, 215, and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts went over 100 yards. No Jared Goff in this game on the COVID list. Again, not a surprise that Detroit lose. I mean, there really isn't that much to take away from this other than, Kyle Pitts is good. That's kind of the main thing here.
Yeah, it's tough. And this is why you got to try to avoid.
This is why you lift all them weights.
This is why you got to try to avoid bad losses, if at all possible. And, you look at the Falcons schedule and you go back to the 34-30 loss to Washington, or the 19-13 loss to what was the Panthers. And if one of those goes your way, then suddenly you're in a lot better shape right now. And so that's where those things start to pop up and matter. The Falcons almost blew this game. So that's not a surprise, which I think is a problem here. They ended up giving the Lions the ball back, and then were able to hold on. I like that Kyle Pitts is putting together the year sort of in this last stretch that we thought he might have, because I think it reaffirms the fact that they did make this decision to not take a quarterback and go with what would be an offensive piece that you can build around. And so, I mean, we'll see what the Falcons can do. the Lions are what the Lions are. The Falcons are not going to make the postseason, as you said, with the minor heartbeat. And so this becomes another team for me that you have to watch in the offseason, and they got to look themselves in the mirror and figure out what they want to do.
Look in the mirror. Anyway, let's head to the NFC South champions, Pete Sweeney. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers secured their first division title with Tom Brady at quarterback, thanks to a 32-6 win over the, again, not worthy of being called fraudulent Carolina Panthers. Brady himself, 18 of 30, 232 yards, a touchdown. Antonio Brown serving as the number one wide receiver with Chris Godwin gone for the year, Mike Evans out. 10 catches, 101 yards. Not a real like razzle dazzle game. I mean, the 32 points, I think makes it look that way, but it was just kind of a ho-hum day. If there is such thing as a ho-hum 32-6 win. The Panthers, while they are not frauds, suck, dude. Their kicker, Lareem Hairulahu, was on, thank you very much, was on the Dallas Cowboys roster and played a game for them this past season when Greg Zuerlein was on the COVID list. The Panthers are just, they make me sad. They alternated quarterbacks in this game. And that's the thing. Like, I actually think they're the story, even though the Bucs won the NFC South. But I don't think there's anything to say. Like, the Bucs are good.
Well,
but the Panthers,
there is something to say very quickly here too. That first division title since 2007. Come up of the week goes to the Bucs. Getting a hat and T-shirt in the regular season. That's a long time to not win a division. I know they were able to win the Super Bowl last year, and that's what really matters. But they won it as a wild card team. They are back to controlling that division, and I think they will control it so long as Tom Brady wants to continue eating salads and going to bed at 8:30 and wants to continue playing until he's 50. This is the Bucs division, so congratulations on the come up of the week. No congratulations to Antonio Brown, who continues to make me sick each and every week. But go ahead. I'm sorry, RJ.
Antonio Brown had a very, very unkind answer when asked about the fake vaccination card, etc.
Just a guy who just does not care.
I mean, and
about anything but
you see this
very clearly.
Like, there are instances, and I'm not saying this is the same as anything, but there are instances where a player is asked about something controversial or something embarrassing. You talked about the Bills after the Monday night loss. Whenever they're asked about something displeasing, sometimes you get the guys who just answer the question. Sometimes you get the terse response like, oh, you know what? We just got to be better or whatever. Right. I mean, this was Antonio Brown snapping and then being pressed and respect to the reporter who pressed and said, look, this is the first time we're getting to talk to you here. I mean, whatever. So not great vibes. And also, I don't know what the opposite of the come up of the week is, but goes to Bruce Arians. Like, I know I've been hard on Bruce Arians, but Bruce has had to, I don't even know if you can call it eat crow, because I mean, remember all the talk, we're not going to sign Antonio Brown, had to walk that back, and then basically tried to pound his chest and say, oh, we're going to cut Antonio Brown as soon as he's back from suspension. And then, Chris Godwin gets hurt and everybody understands the need for him, but then has to walk that back too. Like
Evans or Godwin or Fournette. Yeah. And then suddenly you absolutely need Antonio Brown. You didn't before. You absolutely need him now. And then it's like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I will no longer, not that I ever really did, but I will no longer take anything Bruce Arians says seriously, because, and he had the quote this past week that was like, I don't give a crap about your response. And everybody's like, ooh, how cool. Bruce cursed. He's so awesome. He says what's on his mind. No, dude, he is a hypocrite. That's okay. Like, just admit it.
The press conference curse has, I think, in these past 3 years, this is another rabbit hole, but the press conference curse has gone from like really unique and sort of cool to, I think it's been a little bit overplayed.
It's a move
in 2021.
I got to throw some heat off of like the thing I'm actually talking about here. So it's a move. Like it's a carefully.
It's like the crowd kind of like it gasps a little bit, and then you get confused as to what the original point was about anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you're a kid in school and like somebody gets in trouble and everybody's like, ooh, that's what it is. But
it's over. It's gotten to be a little bit overplayed, and I think. The athletes, it used to be an off the cuff thing where I think it's starting to become a little bit more self-aware, and that of course ruins any kind of bit.
Not a way you can describe Antonio Brown, as mentioned. Just quickly, Sam Darnold and Cam Newton alternated in this game. I don't know why. Matt Rule after the game, Pete, did you see his quote?
I did.
So you can correct me if you want me to
read it?
Yeah, I would like you to read it, please. So again, this is Matt Rule coach of the super awful Carolina Panthers, after they just lost by 26 points as the other team celebrated a division championship in their building, when he is 2 seasons into this with a total and absolute mess, not just on his staff.
Okay, here we go.
At the quarterback position. Go ahead, Pete.
I believe it's 1000% working. I just know no one can see it, and I apologize. As I tell our team, the Panthers, all the time, it took Jay-Z 7 years. He had to start his own agency to become an overnight sensation. It takes time. Very clearly, Matt Rule needs to go to the RJ Ochoa school of comparisons, because you seem to be the best at this of anyone I've ever met. And Matt Rule, in that comparison, made absolutely no sense. What is he even talking about? To start his own agency? Where is the comparison there? Is he going to start his own team next year? Like, what do you mean? Is there a 33rd team that we don't know about that you are going to coach when the Panthers fire you 2 years into your 7-year contract?
What? I know I called out BLG earlier on the Justin Herbert thing, but BLG has a term that is so applicable here. Big loser energy. What the hell are you talking about, Matt?
What more can you say?
You actually, Matt Rule, have the 99 problems. Like you have the 99 problems that actually you have the full 100. Like, you have all of them. I hope Jay-Z tweets about this. Like, that's what I want at this point. Like, I want Jay-Z to tweet about this and just embarrass the Panthers. Like, the Panthers are an atrocity. They're insignificant.
The Teppers need to get that dirt off their shoulder and move on. At this point, Rule.
This man does not miss, people.
It's over. The crowd was chanting "Fire Rule" after this game, so I think the experiment is over. And when it comes to Darnold and Newton, right? We clearly can understand now.
I've never heard that Newton.
These are clipboard guys, right? I mean, they're backup quarterbacks in the NFL at this point. I don't think they should necessarily be out of the NFL, but you can't go in with confidence in Sam Darnold. Darnold needs to go and do a Trubisky year or two, like he's doing in Buffalo right now. And Newton is a veteran quarterback who could really, I think, still be in the league and mentor someone and maybe have a spot start here and there. And for what it's worth, when he was essentially fired by the Patriots, he said he would be open to that. So we'll see if he puts his money where his mouth is when it comes to next year. But I just neither of these guys are starters in the NFL. They're not.
Somehow, some way, they are not the most dysfunctional team in the NFL because the New York Giants exist. The G-Men losing their 11th game of the season, 34-10, the final score, as the Philadelphia Eagles got above 500, above the nest. Shout out, of course, to Rachel, our fantastic producer, and the work she does over at Bleeding Green Nation. Jalen Hurts, 17 of 29, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, including one to Lane Johnson in the fourth quarter when things were starting to be poured on.
I just love this because the Eagles now have a chance to be in the postseason here, which is wild. They're currently in the 7th seed.
They would currently visit the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card.
And they're going to win. BLG is going to dance on the Cowboys Super Bowl aspiration.
And I've been so wonderful to you here today, Pete. I called the Chargers frauds. I mean, it's Christmas time. It's the sandwich week you talked about. I'm here. I mean, I'm trying to be with my friend, my pal Pete. And
you can see what is there the Eagles are up 24-14, and they're showing Jerry Jones in the box looking disappointed again. They're talking about Mike McCarthy. You have Sirianni with his visor running up and down the sidelines, ready to play in the divisional round.
Let's get to the game because I have a lot of thoughts. No. I want to say something, Pete.
You don't like that scenario. Okay.
So Lane Johnson caught a touchdown in this game. All right. Lane Johnson is an offensive lineman.
Yes.
just to be clear. Later in the day, Terrence Steele, Dallas Cowboys offensive lineman, caught a touchdown. Okay. Lane Johnson and Terrence Steele each have 1 receiving touchdown on the season. That is more than Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney have combined this season. The Giants are awful. Jake Fromm was pulled in this game after going 6 of 17 for 25 yards and an interception. Mike Glennon wasn't exactly much better. The leading receiver on the Giants was Kadarius Toney with 28 yards. Saquon Barkley, 15 carries for a whopping 32 yards. His longest gain on the day, a 7-yard carry. Pete, this dreadful New York Giants performance, where they only scored a touchdown in the final 4 minutes of the game in garbage time, came on the day that it was reported by ESPN that the Giants, as you mentioned, are doubling down not just on Daniel Jones, who I don't think it's unfair to believe in a little bit, but they are doubling down on Joe Judge. Laughing stock, Pete, absolute laughing stock. The New York Giants, Pete Sweeney, your childhood team, have scored, or rather did score, 4 offensive touchdowns in the month of December. The Dallas Cowboys scored 6 offensive touchdowns on Sunday night.
Not my Giants. I got to go to the other New York team for a second here quickly, and I forgot to say this, and I'll get back to the Giants. But speaking of offensive linemen, and I forgot to bring this point up, in Jets and Jaguars, 2 offensive linemen scored touchdowns in that game. And I wanted to bring it up, and that's why I'm doing it now, because you love scoregamis. This was the only offensive lineman Ami in the history. Since 1950, not 2 offensive linemen have not scored touchdowns. Back to this game with the New York Giants. Ridiculous that they're doubling down on Jones and Judge. This has been an absolute disaster. And the Giants, to me, look like a team. So say wins weren't a thing and all you had was tape, right? And you don't know that the Lions have 2 wins, and you don't know the Jaguars have whatever they have. I don't have it in front of me. The Giants could be the worst team in the league, right? I mean,
they are. I think they are. Like, from a quality standpoint. Yeah, they are.
And to the best programs in the NFL, the best franchises, right? They get to a certain point where they have the confidence in their decision making to say, we are going to admit we were wrong. We are going to cut our losses. I understand the Mara family wants to say, okay, we don't want to have another coach every 2 years, but you got to keep making moves until you get it right. I mean, it is clear as day that this guy should not be a head coach. I mean, it is clear as day that Daniel Jones has a ceiling, and it is absurdly low. You're not giving your fan base any kind of confidence at all.
I don't want to make this about Daniel Jones, because I think it's fair to believe we've seen quarterbacks join new staffs and be resuscitated. So I think that exists in the world of possibilities for Daniel Jones. No. It does not exist in any world that that Joe Judge would be good. What an embarrassment. I mean, and again, you normally see, and I'm not saying Jason Garrett was the right choice at offensive coordinator, but you normally see when somebody fires the offensive coordinator or the defense, you know what I mean? You see a bounce. You know what I'm saying? You see the one game where you're like, well, that's why. That coordinator was the problem. And that just has not happened here. The Giants suck. That's the word I would use. They are terrible. They are awful. They are hilarious. I love watching the turmoil that they are in. They are truly, totally, absolutely, unequivocally awful. My last point on this game, Devontae Smith had a touchdown, and it was a touchdown. I want to be very clear here. Devontae Smith had an awesome touchdown that should have been ruled as one from the beginning. I don't know if you saw this, because I know you were getting ready. It was initially reviewed. It was a touchdown that was reviewed and ruled incomplete. It was near the edge of the end zone. So he was looking at his feet. It was ruled incomplete. The officials then went, and they came out, they announced incomplete, whatever. They went back and reviewed it and then deemed it a touchdown. And I'm happy ultimately that the right call was made, but man, officials, just this is awful. I don't want to be the next person complaining about officials. They're so bad, but this is really, really, really bad. But the New York Giants, you're bad. Anyway, you ready to move on, Pete?
Yes.
Oh, last thing on the Giants. You never want to be a team that when you trade for a first round pick, that you pick ahead of them. You know what I mean? Because you're like, oh man, that means we suck more than that team. They have the Bears first round pick, and have a worse first round pick than them. And they play the Bears this week, the battle of loserness for the Giants in every sense of the word.
But with the Bears coming off their win over the Seahawks, there's no way the Bears lose that game.
I don't want to bet on anybody in that game. Anyway, the Kansas City Chiefs dominated the Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, Hussein, Aiden Diggs, a jersey. Very cool move of Patrick Mahomes. He's back, 23 of 30, a ho-hum 258 yards, 3 touchdowns, 135.1 passer rating. Byron Pringle, who you trashed earlier, Pete, called him a bubble watch guy, 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, what a surprise, Pete. The Pittsburgh Steelers are trapped by Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback.
Yeah, it was an ugly game, and the Pittsburgh Steelers were never in it. I know that Patrick Mahomes has a lot of these highlights in this game, but if you really zoned in on it, to me, it was the Chiefs front just not allowing the Steelers to operate, and the offense looked good enough.
It was 30-0 before Pittsburgh scored. I mean, that was a field goal.
What is amazing about it is Travis Kelce didn't play in this game. Tyreek Hill was just off the COVID list, and so he didn't have practice. And I'm not really sure how winded he was, but he didn't really look to be exactly the same. So yeah, it was Mahomes and even Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back, got hurt in this game. So it was Mahomes and Pringle and Derek Gore, McCole Hardman, and I don't know, and you're gonna roll your eyes at this, but I don't care. It in the course of history of Tom Brady, for example, he did it with guys and different guys every year. And Mahomes doesn't really have that opportunity yet because it's so early in his career. But this was one of the early opportunities where it was Mahomes and a bunch of Jags, as they would say, and they embarrassed a potential playoff team in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I don't think you need to look, it was an awesome win, and Mahomes is awesome. But I don't think you can rightfully claim like they embarrassed and almost like the Steelers are worthy. That's all I'm saying. Like the Steelers were. I'm not saying. I'm not trying to take away from it, but the Steelers are a bad team.
The leading tackler and the leading receiver are just undrafted free agents. I was impressed with Patrick Mahomes, and he looked as good as he has all year. And that's a huge sign. And the defense looked amazing with Chris Jones back in the lineup. It's going to be a tough team to beat, and you have to have the players to do it. And that's, going back to the Buffalo Bills, even though it's been a little bit more up and down for them, I just think they have the personnel that can hang with the Chiefs if they're playing their best game. I don't really know if I necessarily feel that about any other team in the AFC. And similar to the Seattle Seahawks on the other side here, very clearly the final games of Big Ben's career, this does not seem like a team that's going to find their way into the postseason. And we'll see if they're also like Denver in the quarterback sweepstakes in the offseason.
I would love to see Kirk Cousins be their quarterback next year, honestly.
Your guy.
We'll see.
So they could continue to get records like this every year.
I thought, Pete Sweeney, that was going to be the I was prepared. Like when I saw this game, I was like, well, that's the biggest beatdown we're gonna talk about when we hit Monday Football Monday. I really thought that. I really thought I can't wait to say to Pete, that Kansas City is back. The WF for frauds, despite the fact that they were never
Washington
good
fraudulent team.
They embarrassingly, I mean, just I like to think I have a lot of I have a large vocabulary. I don't have the words for how utterly embarrassing it is that they copied the Cowboys bench thing and that they are now 0-2 while doing so. I don't have the words for Ron Rivera clutching his pearls and taking supreme offense to Mike McCarthy saying that he thought his team would win the game 2 weeks ago. Since Ron Rivera went on his team's show, the Washington football team's website, whatnot, he said, that's a really bad idea. He made it about him. He's just trying to get into our heads. I think that was a mistake. Ron Rivera's cute little Washington football team got swept, and on Sunday night they got demolished. They got taken apart. They got throttled. They got thrashed. They got flat out dominated and embarrassed on national television and knocked all the way out of playoff contention. However sad and pathetic it was that they were near there at the very beginning. 56-14, the widest margin of victory by an NFL team over another, if you believe that Washington is deserving of being called an NFL team today. Just total demolition of Ron Rivera's stupidly fraud team. In fact, Pete Sweeney, they are so embarrassing that they fought one another on the benches in question.
Yeah, you got to realize that there's cameras at these games. I think the biggest thing for the Cowboys offense, and correct me if I'm wrong, RJ, is just the amount of receivers and spreading the ball and just the fact that it really seemed like this Cowboys offense was clicking on all cylinders when I think the Cowboys offense is at its best. And Dak Prescott, in a sense, is cooking 330, 4 touchdowns in this game. It's when he's spreading the ball around and you don't really know where it's going to go. And similar to you talk about the Kansas City beatdown where you finally see something out of Patrick Mahomes. You needed, even against the Washington football team who isn't going anywhere, you needed to see this type of performance at the end of the year. in that like sense of peaking at the right time to really feel, I think, comfortable about picking the Cowboys. Now I think the Cowboys are going to be a hot pick by a lot of people to go to the Super Bowl once again. You couldn't really feel that for what were a few weeks. I believe it was Gregory who had that tip interception.
He had a tip interception against him 2 weeks ago, actually, but it was DeMarcus Lawrence who
Lawrence
took it to the house on Sunday night.
On Sunday night. What a play. And I thought just an exclamation point. Diggs with 11 interceptions now. They have the
first
defense.
Play of the game. They're trying him. What are you doing?
They have the defense. They have the offense. And then I also saw something that I liked in the highlights of this, where there was a Cowboys playing laying down with Heineke, which is just such.
So that was 2 weeks ago after Randy Gregory had a play on Taylor Heineke. They were just kind of positioned next to one another, and Randy kind of smiled and laughed, did the same thing. So I mean that those are the kind of things, like when you're having fun and you're dominating, like all those things are so great.
That felt to me like a Rodgers yelling to the Bears crowd moment of
I love you, Pete.
Dallas.
I've never said it.
Dallas owning the WFT. And you look at the rest of this division, and it's good for the division that the Eagles exist, because these other two teams, the other two teams, I know the Eagles struggle with the Giants sometimes, sorry BLG, but they should be 4 easy wins for the foreseeable future. I mean, that's just kind of where I think the Cowboys and Eagles are at with this thing.
Dak Prescott is 9-1 in his career against the Washington football team. He is 9-1 in his last 10 games against the New York Giants, to your point. I mean, just total absolute domination from the past and seemingly so in the future. Dak threw 4 touchdowns in this game, 1 to a wide receiver in Amari Cooper, 1 to a tight end in Dalton Schultz, 1 to a running back in Ezekiel Elliott, and 1 to an offensive tackle, as mentioned, in Terrence Steele. Also 1 in an obligatory reference to a partridge in a pear tree. He was awesome. I mean, and this was what you needed. This is what every Cowboys fan has been waiting for. You kind of experienced this with the Chiefs wins as of late. The offense kind of coming on board. I would say the Chargers win was kind of that. I mean, it was just total absolute domination. They had a block punt for a touchdown. I mean, this was, I think you can make an argument, this was the most complete game that any team has played in the NFL all season. And Washington was embarrassed. Washington got routed. Washington, and I throw you in this, Pete. It remains utterly hilarious to me that anybody picked them to win this thing when they barely won it last year with a below 500 record. One of the wins, in fact, a result of it being given to them because the Eagles threw it in week 17. What a joke. What an absolute total complete joke of a franchise Washington is, for a number of different reasons. But Dallas,
of course,
Cowboys are back.
I mean, you're talking about 2 different teams. This is the Heineke WFT. That, of course, was the Smith WFT, which are vastly different.
Very good
teams.
Point. Very quickly, Pete, before we leave, we have a 7-7-7-7 Monday Night Football matchup. The Miami Dolphins visiting the New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton has come out and said that he wants to see the Superdome packed. Both of these teams looking to stay in the playoff hunt. Where you at? What do you like? How you feeling?
I mean, Miami's going to win this game.
Whoa.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Right. You can't bet on that quarterback. This is the NFL.
Is that the end of your... Okay.
This is the National Football League. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the NFL. The Saints called Drew Brees, and he sent them a picture of him golfing. That's how desperate they were to not start this quarterback. If Tua loses to this quarterback, he should be released. Is that a hot take? Is that a hot take?
No, but okay. I agree. I think Miami wins. What
is his name? Ian Book?
Yes. And
we don't even know the quarterback's name.
It is Ian Book. The rare wore a gold helmet in college and gets to wear another one in the pros thing. You don't see that all too often. So good for him. But last bit of NFL news, I guess, here, Pete. And sorry to our producer, Rachel. But the NFL just announced that the Rams-Ravens game this week has been moved to the noon slate. Total disrespect to the Ravens.
Rams and Ravens? What time were they?
They were in the afternoon. And,
okay.
No
Sunday Night Football change, right?
No, and instead the Panthers-Saints game has replaced them in the afternoon window.
Oh gosh.
And I tell you why that has happened, Pete. All right, you ready for this? There are now 5 games taking place in the afternoon window on Sunday. The first one, Denver at the Chargers, frauds against frauds. The second one, Houston at San Francisco, losers against mild losers.
Right.
Obviously, Panthers at Saints, losers against losers. Detroit at Seattle. I mean, goodness gracious. But the fifth game, Arizona at Dallas. The NFL is setting it up to where that will be the only thing that anybody watches. I guarantee you that will be one of the highest rated games of the season because it's the afternoon window and everything else is a stinker. Some people might have watched Rams Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, America's team is in there, and they're playing the Dallas Cowboys because J.J. Watt is on the Cardinals. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, and I'm just grateful. I don't know if you heard the fear in my voice, but I was real worried about Chiefs and Bengals getting moved, and I am so happy that it remained at noon.
I don't complain as much about the Sunday Night Football stuff as Pete does, but it's not fun. I'll say that.
I can't stand it. I'll be honest. When the Chiefs get moved, which happens a lot now, it makes it. I yelled one time. This year they all of a sudden Chiefs and Broncos went from noon to Sunday night. I don't know how that happened, but it was not fun. It was not a fun moment for me.
Pete, the weather outside, not exactly frightful. It's one of the warmest Christmases across the country in recent memory, but you remain so delightful. This has been Monday Football Monday, the SB Nation NFL show. Cowboys and Chiefs on the way to Los Angeles for Super Bowl 56. Pete Sweeney, the final words belong to you. Make them great, make them historic, make them the most wonderful words we've ever heard. Go.
RJ, I'll see you next year.
Boom. Auld Lang Syne, baby.